All right, Talk Tickers listeners, welcome back. We usually dive deep on those earnings calls here. But today we're kind of switching gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Some big news dropped, and we wanted to unpack it a little bit with you.
For sure.
So IAC is spinning off Angi,
Oh, yeah. That was interesting.
their home improvement marketplace.
Yeah, definitely caught my eye. IAC making moves again.
Right, and this isn't just any company we're talking about.
Yeah.
The folks that have spun off,
Right.
Expedia, Ticketmaster, Lending Tree. I mean, like big names.
Huge.
So, before we get into the why of it all, let's just make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
What is Angi? For those that, haven't been, knee deep in bathroom renovations lately,
Right.
it's basically the platform.
Uh-huh.
If you need a pro for pretty much anything around the house, I
Yeah.
mean, over 500 categories we're talking.
Wow.
Think Airbnb for fixing leaky faucets, but, on a massive scale.
Yeah.
It's got a long history, too, evolved from, the original Angie's List to merging with Home Advisor.
That's right.
So this spinoff could be a big deal.
Agreed. It's going to be fascinating to see how this impacts both companies.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get to the details. IAC's board has officially given this the green light,
Mm-hmm.
and they're aiming to finalize everything in the second quarter of 2025.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting here is if you're an IAC shareholder,
Yeah.
you're going to automatically become an Angi shareholder.
It's like a bonus stock appearing in your portfolio overnight.
Right. And speaking of shakeups, CEO Joey Levin is actually stepping down from IAC,
Interesting.
but he's not disappearing.
Okay.
He's going to be an advisor to IAC,
Gotcha.
and he's becoming Angi's executive chairman.
Okay.
Almost like, a coach switching teams, but still staying in the game.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Right. And there's another twist to this whole thing.
Okay.
IAC is not planning to immediately replace Levin as CEO.
Oh,
Instead, the top execs are going to report directly to Chairman Barry Diller.
interesting.
So it's a pretty streamlined,
Right.
some might say bold management structure.
Yeah, definitely raises some questions about IAC's plans.
Definitely. But first, let's dig into the why of it all.
Okay.
Why spin off Angi? Now, what's the bigger picture?
Yeah, why now?
What do you think?
Well, there are a few compelling reasons why companies would spin off parts of their business.
Mhm.
One of the most common is that it allows both the parent company and the spin-off to laser focus
Okay.
on their own growth strategies.
Yeah.
It's like saying, hey, you do your thing, I'll do mine, and we can both reach our full potential.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Like, trying to juggle too many things at once can dilute everyone's efforts.
Absolutely. And it's not just about internal focus either.
Okay.
By separating, they can appeal to investors who are specifically interested in their particular industry.
Right.
Someone who's really excited about the potential of, home services might not be as thrilled about, IAC's other ventures and vice versa.
Yeah.
This gives investors more clarity and a chance to align their investments with their specific interests.
So it's about sharpening that focus,
Yeah,
attracting
Yeah.
the right kind of attention.
exactly.
Makes me think about IAC's past moves, spinning off Match Group,
Right.
which owns, Tindermatch.com, Hinge. I mean,
Huge.
these are major players.
Yeah, those are some big names.
Right.
And let's not forget Vimeo.
Oh, yeah.
IAC has a pretty impressive track record
Mhm.
of spinning off successful companies.
Yeah.
So, it's not like they're venturing into uncharted territory here.
It seems like they know what they're doing,
Yeah,
but what does all of this mean for Angi specifically?
right.
What are the opportunities and the challenges
Yeah, what are they facing going solo?
that they might face going solo? What do you think?
Well, one of the most interesting aspects of this spinoff is how it could potentially unlock value for both companies. And think of it this way, IAC is like a conglomerate, a collection of different businesses all bundled together.
Right.
And this can sometimes make it difficult for investors to understand the true worth of each individual piece.
Uh-huh.
It's like trying to value an entire pizza instead of looking at each slice.
So by spinning off Angi, they're essentially taking a slice of that pizza and putting it on its own plate.
Exactly.
Makes it easier to see what it's really worth.
Precisely. And when investors have a clearer picture, it can often lead to a higher valuation,
Okay.
both for the individual company and for the parent company in the long run.
Interesting. So it's not just about, creating two separate entities,
Right.
but potentially increasing the overall value for everyone involved.
Exactly. Classic case of the sum of the parts being greater than the whole.
I like it.
Right.
But let's get specific. What could this mean for Angi in terms of its competitive position?
Yeah.
Can they really thrive on their own in the home services market?
That's the key question, isn't it?
It is.
And there's no denying that Angi faces some stiff competition. I mean, this is a hot market. And there are already established players and new entrants popping up all the time.
Yeah, everyone wants a piece of that home improvement pie.
But Angi doesn't exactly come to the table empty-handed.
Right.
They have a massive user base, a well-recognized brand, and decades of experience in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty solid foundation to build upon.
They're not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of street cred in the home services world.
Right. And now with the freedom that comes from being independent of IAC, they can be much more agile.
Yeah.
They can experiment, make acquisitions, and really double down on the strategies that work best for them.
Right.
Without having to go through layers of corporate approval.
Yeah.
This spinoff could give them the boost they need to jump to the next level.
It's almost like they're graduating from being part of a larger organization
Right.
to running their own show.
And it's not just about doing what they've always done either. Angi has been expanding into new areas like pre-priced services, trying to make the whole process of home improvement even easier for consumers.
Makes sense.
It's like they're evolving from a simple directory to a full-blown home improvement ecosystem.
So they're aiming to be more than just a middleman.
Mm.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in such a competitive market.
Right.
But let's be realistic. What are some of the challenges Angi might face going solo?
Sure.
What should investors be watching for?
Of course, there are always risks.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest is execution. Can Angi's management team effectively navigate the complexities of being a standalone public company?
Right.
They'll need to prove that they can attract and retain top talent, make smart financial decisions, and stay ahead of the curve in a constantly evolving industry.
No training wheels anymore.
Exactly. And then there's the financial side.
Yeah.
You know, Angi has faced some headwinds recently with revenue declining in recent quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Investors will need to watch closely to see if they can turn that trend around as an independent entity.
Yeah. Past performance is no guarantee of future results, especially after a major change like this.
Right. And we can't forget about the broader economic context.
Mhm.
You know, we've seen some volatility in the housing market, and if that continues, it could definitely impact Angi's business.
Right.
Home improvement spending often goes hand in hand with how confident people feel about the value of their homes.
So there are definitely some external factors that are outside of their control.
Absolutely. But that's true for any company, especially in an industry as tied to the economy as home services.
Yeah.
So while this spinoff has the potential to be a win-win for both IAC and Angi, there are also some real risks that investors need to consider.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits and the risks, but I'm curious, what does this mean for investors who are already holding IAC stock?
Right.
What happens to them?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, they're automatically going to receive shares of Angi as part of the spinoff.
Okay.
This essentially gives them two separate investments, one in IAC and one in Angi.
So it's like a 2-for-1 deal in their portfolio.
Yeah, but these are now two distinct companies, each with their own unique risks and rewards.
Right. So investors will need to do their homework
Yeah.
and decide whether they want to hold on to both investments or adjust their positions based on their individual goals and risk tolerance.
Makes sense. This spinoff creates some interesting opportunities for sure.
It does.
But it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
No.
Investors need to make their own informed decisions.
Now, one thing that always fascinates me about these kinds of corporate moves is the potential for market inefficiencies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, pricing discrepancies, arbitrage opportunities, that kind of thing.
You're thinking like a true trader.
That's right.
And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
When you create two separate companies from one, there's often a period of adjustment where the market might not have everything perfectly priced in, especially in the short term.
Like the market needs a moment to recalibrate its compass.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And savvy investors who are paying close attention can sometimes capitalize on these short-term inefficiencies.
Interesting.
It's not just about the long-term potential of the spinoff,
Right.
but also about understanding the potential for short-term volatility and finding opportunities that others might miss.
All right, Talk Tickers listeners. I think it's time for everyone's favorite segment.
Oh, here we go.
This is not financial advice.
Always a good reminder.
So this whole IAC Angi spinoff got my trader brain buzzing.
Okay.
And I've been playing around with a somewhat outlandish trade idea.
I'm intrigued. Let's hear it.
I'd love to get your take on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what if we do a little pairs trade? Short IAC, long Angi.
Interesting. So you're betting that Angi, now free from IAC, will outperform its former parent.
Exactly. Think about it. Angi has this newfound freedom to make its own moves,
Thanks.
attract investors who are specifically interested in the home services space, and potentially unlock a ton of value that was being obscured while it was still part of IAC.
I can see the logic there. And IAC does have a track record of its spinoffs doing quite well, so it's not completely out there.
Right. And let's not forget that Angi is operating in a market with huge growth potential.
Mm-hmm.
Home improvement is a massive industry. And if they can execute their strategy effectively,
Right.
they could really capitalize on that.
Okay.
I'm intrigued, but let's not get carried away.
Right.
What about the risks? What could go wrong with this trade?
Well, the biggest risk is, of course, that the spinoff doesn't go as planned.
Right.
Maybe Angi can't hack it on their own, or maybe the home services market takes a downturn for some reason.
Yeah.
We can't ignore the possibility that things just don't pan out the way we hope.
Right. There's always that chance. And then there's market sentiment.
Uh-huh.
What if investors suddenly decide they're not as excited about the home improvement sector as they once were?
Right.
That could put downward pressure on Angi's stock price, even if the company itself is performing well.
Those are all valid points. They're definitely external factors that we can't control. Absolutely. But as you said, that's the nature of the game. No risk, no reward.
Exactly.
So how would you structure this trade in practical terms? What kind of entry and exit points are we looking at?
Okay, let's assume hypothetically that IAC is trading around $70 a share and Angi is around $20 a share. We could initiate the pairs trade by shorting 1 share of IAC for every 3 or 4 shares of Angi that we buy. This helps maintain a relatively neutral exposure to the overall spinoff, which could mitigate some of the market risk.
That's a smart way to approach it. So what about exit points? What would you be watching for?
There are a few things that could be interesting catalysts. Angi's first earnings report as an independent company would be a big one. If they knock it out of the park, they could send their stock soaring and signal that the spinoff is a success.
And conversely, if their first earnings report disappoints, that might be a good time to close out the short position on IAC.
Exactly. And beyond earnings, we could keep an eye on analyst ratings and any major news or developments that could impact either company. This is a dynamic situation, so we need to be ready to adjust our strategy as needed.
Sounds like a plan, but remember, folks, we're just spitballing here. This is purely hypothetical and for entertainment purposes only. Do not construe this as financial advice. Do your own research and consult with a professional before making any investment decisions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, so we've talked about the what, the why, and even a possible how to trade this spinoff. But let's wrap things up with the big question. What's the future hold for IAC and Angi?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? No one has a crystal ball, but we can make some educated guesses based on what we know about these companies, the industry, and the history of spinoffs in general.
So let's put on our prognostication hats and make some bold predictions. I'll start to. Do I think Angi can thrive as an independent company? I think they've got a real shot. They're in a growing market, they have a strong brand, and they seem to be making smart moves to expand their offerings. But they'll need to execute flawlessly, navigate a competitive landscape, and really prove to investors that they're more than just a spinoff. It's not going to be easy.
I agree. They've got a lot to prove, but I wouldn't underestimate them. They have a lot of potential. Now, what about IAC? What's next for them after shedding another major business?
Well, they still have a diverse portfolio of companies, including Dotdash Meredith, which is their largest business, Care.com, and a few other ventures. They're also known for being active acquirers. They've got a history of using spin-offs to free up capital to make strategic acquisitions. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them sniffing around for new opportunities in the near future.
They definitely don't seem like the type to just sit on a pile of cash.
No, they tend to make bold moves. And this whole situation got me thinking, could this be the start of a broader trend? Are we going to see more companies spinning off businesses to focus on their core strengths and adapt to this rapidly changing world?
It's an interesting question, and I think it's definitely possible we're in a time of rapid technological advancement, evolving consumer behavior, and global economic shifts. Companies need to be agile to thrive in this environment, and spin-offs can be a powerful tool for achieving that. It allows companies to streamline their operations, unlock value, and create more focused and adaptable businesses.
Maybe this IAC Angi spinoff is just the tip of the iceberg. Only time will tell.
Indeed. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
All right, Talk Tickers listeners, that's all the time we have for today. We've covered a lot of ground from breaking news to bold predictions, but we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this IAC Angi spinoff? Are you bullish or bearish on either company? Head over to our social media channels and let us know.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive into the world of finance. We'll be back next time with more analysis insights and maybe even a few more outlandish trade ideas. Until then, Happy investing.
As we've been talking about this, something keeps kind of nagging at me. It's the timing of it all. Like,
Right.
why spin off Angi now? Is there something more we should be reading into with this move?
That's a great question. A lot of analysts are wondering the same thing.
Okay.
There are a few theories floating around out there.
Don't leave us lay them on us.
Okay, so one theory is that IAC might be anticipating a potential slowdown in the housing market.
Okay.
Home improvement spending tends to be cyclical,
Right.
and there have been whispers of a possible cooling off.
Uh-huh.
Spinning off Angi now could be a way for IAC to insulate itself from some of that potential risk.
So it's like they're battening down the hatches before the storm hits. Interesting.
Yeah.
What else are people speculating about?
Another theory is that IAC simply wants to streamline its portfolio
Okay.
and concentrate on its most promising businesses.
Mm.
They've done this before,
Right.
spinning off companies that have reached a certain level of maturity.
Uh-huh.
It's like a parent bird nudging a fledgling out of the nest.
Yeah, go on, little Angie, spread your wings and fly.
Exactly. But there's also a more intriguing possibility that some folks are whispering about.
Okay, I'm always up for a good market conspiracy theory. What's the gossip?
Some people believe that IAC is gearing up for a major acquisition,
Okay.
and spinning off Angi is a way to free up capital and resources to make a big move. It's like they're clearing space on the chessboard for a major power play.
Ooh, that would definitely shake things up. It makes you wonder what IAC has in its sights.
It does, whatever their motives. This spin-off signals that IAC isn't standing still.
Right.
They're not afraid to make bold moves, even if it means parting ways with a successful business like Angi. They're always looking for the next strategic advantage.
Makes you wonder if they have a secret whiteboard somewhere with all these complex plans mapped out.
I wouldn't be surprised. So where does this leave us?
Sure.
What's the key takeaway for investors trying to make sense of this IAC Angi saga?
That's the big question. What did we learn today?
I think the most important thing to remember is that spinoffs can create exciting opportunities, but they also come with inherent risks. It's crucial for investors to do their due diligence.
Right.
Understand the rationale behind the spinoff.
Yeah.
Look at the fundamentals of both the parent company and the new independent business,
Uh-huh.
and carefully consider your own investment goals and risk tolerance.
Don't just blindly follow the hype. Think for yourself, do your homework, and make informed decisions.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Why is this spinoff happening?
Right.
What are the potential benefits and risks? What's the long-term outlook for both companies?
Yeah.
The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you'll be to navigate these kinds of market events.
Couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. Well, Talk Tickers listeners, that's all the time we have for today. We've covered a lot of ground, unpacked the news, explored the implications, even cooked up a wild trade idea.
That's a good one.
But as always, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this IAC Angi spinoff? Are you bullish or bearish on either company? Hit us up on social media and share your take.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive into the world of finance. We'll be back next time with more analysis insights and maybe even a few more outlandish trade ideas. Until then, happy investing.